Yeah, we can just get started. We're talking about SOS by SZA today.
Oh yeah.
Full
Um,
album review, a Smokified episode. It's been a minute since we've done a full album review.
that's true. What was the last album we reviewed? Do you remember?
I want to say it was Savage Mode 2.
No, that was so long ago.
It,
Was it
it
really?
was I think that
Let
might have
me
been the
look into
last one.
That's crazy. I gotta look this up now. But yeah. This is an album I've been looking forward to reviewing. I got a lot of nominations for Grammys. An unreal number, actually. I was looking at this. Let me look at the list real quick just to make sure I don't get it wrong.
Which
Let's see. So it is
which
up for Album of the Year, Best Progressive R&B Album. Songs on it for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best R&B Performance, Best Traditional R&B Performance, Best R&B Song, Best Melodic Rap Performance, and Best Pop Duo/Group Performance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 nominations.
Wow.
Pretty
And
crazy.
that's all for this year. Like that hasn't
Yeah,
happened yet. Yeah, because I
yeah.
know that was an interesting thing. I guess we can just get into describing what the album is.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
came out in 2022, which is kind of interesting because it came out at the end of the year, but it's been appearing on like a bunch of year-end lists for 2023, even though it was a 2022 album. Um, but yeah, definitely appearing on a lot of year-end lists, and I feel like the hype around it is that it's just kind of an instant classic R&B record. But even that, I feel like doesn't describe the record perfectly R&B because like it's definitely more than just that genre. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess we'll probably get into that a little bit, but SZA definitely explores more than just R&B, especially rap, some like
Mm-hmm.
alternative sounds as well. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the first thing to note is that there's just an insane number of like hits on this album. I think
there's
like
a lot of singles from the record. Like how many? Six or seven?
yeah, 6 or 7. I mean, some of them came out like years ago, so like I don't even know if those count, but
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of these, and then on top of that, like once the album released, like a lot of the songs that were on the album like took a while to gain some momentum, but
Some
now they're
traction.
over like 200, 300 million streams. So
Gotcha.
it's been interesting kind of watching this album grow and evolve, and even like still I think like a bunch of these songs are still on like the Billboard Top 100. So
Yeah.
it's not like the hype has died down at all. So
Excuse me for coughing. I have a cold. Hopefully, I don't
you're good.
sound gross on this episode. But yeah, I actually didn't realize that the like Good Days was the first single. It looks like came out in 2020, which
Mm-hmm.
is now 3 years ago. And of course, there's some singles that were coming out after the album was released.
Yep.
So last year now, 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of crazy that it's been a long rollout for this record.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I remember, this album was rumored slash rolling out like COVID
okay.
around then. I mean, obviously
Hmm.
like 2020, like you said.
Right.
But like those singles like built up a lot of hype, and then it took a while for the album to actually be released. So
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Mm.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I guess I
I don't know.
mean just based on that, what are your opinions on this album
Yeah.
overall? And we can get into the details after, I guess.
Yeah. It was an interesting album to review because again, like I said, there were so many hits. Like I've heard so many of these songs. Obviously I've listened to the album before, but like, even before I listened to the album all the way through, I had heard so many of these songs before and I liked all of them pretty much. Um, but yeah, I think on the whole, I think this is a great R&B album. I know you said that she experiments a lot with other things, and she does, but I think at its core, this is a fantastic R&B album, and it's one of my favorites. I think the first half of the album starts off really strong. I think there are a lot of hits there, obviously, a lot of songs that are very popular, and a lot of great songs. Whether
Hmm.
whether they're popular or not. And then on first listen, I listened to the album and I thought the second half was a lot weaker than the first. But after listening through it a couple more times, like I felt like although they weren't as popular as the first half, I
Right.
felt like they were a little more experimental and maybe a little more interesting than those
Hmm.
songs. And that was something that I really appreciated as well. Um, and like I listed out my favorite songs, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 9 songs on my favorites list, and then I in my dislike column I just wrote none in all caps. Like there's nothing on this album that I didn't like. I thought all of it was good.
Wow.
I'm not
Okay.
gonna come back to all of the songs necessarily, but
Uh-huh.
there was nothing that I thought was offensive, or nothing that I thought was a big miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we can get into the nitty gritty in a little bit. But yeah, what were your kind of overall thoughts on it?
I got a different perspective, a little bit of a hot take.
Sure.
I didn't think the album was bad, so let me preface there. But I
Hmm.
thought it was just good.
Okay.
I agree with a lot of like what you said. So the first half I think is a lot stronger than the second half. Um,
Hmm.
and we'll get into like some of the songs, but even on the first half, there are some songs that I'm like not that crazy about, but I can at least like respect. So like for example, Kill Bill, um, like that's a huge song, like a TikTok song basically at this point. It's
And are you gonna
like
make me sad? What are you about to say?
I think it's a fine song. It's like
Yeah.
it's a good pop song, but I sometimes find the melody like a little bit annoying. And it's just not for me. But that's kind of how I feel about like the first handful of songs. Like they're good, but they're just not for me. But then it
Yeah.
really gets into like a groove. I would say like kind of the second quarter, like were the songs that I really liked. Let's see, I Snooze, Used, Gone Girl, Smoking on My X Pack,
Hmm.
Ghost in the Machine, all those songs like back to back were great. And that's when I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is dope. But then like complete shift, um, the song F to F.
Oh, I was
I
waiting to hear your thoughts on this.
I hate that song, man.
Oh no.
I don't know. It's just I what I wrote about it is um I'll give her credit for experimenting with different genres,
Yeah.
but it sounds like a bad country
Yeah.
rock song to me. Um and yeah, I couldn't stand it. And there's a couple of songs like that on the second half that I was just like I can appreciate that she's going in different directions,
Hmm.
but it just didn't hit for me. But
Hmm.
like whereas on the first half, I feel like some of that already existed, like her experimenting in different directions, and it did work well. So for me overall, I felt like it was a pretty good album, but like had there been more, I guess had it just been shorter and maybe cleaned up a little bit more with
Yeah.
like some of the fluff removed, I think it would have been a great album for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, those were
I
those were
I
my
think
thoughts.
I think that is probably the one criticism I have of this album as well, is there's, what is it, fucking 23
23
songs on it.
songs,
That's
yeah.
that's that's too many songs. Like again, I think all of them are pretty good for the most
Yeah.
part, but I think if it had been cut down to like 16
Hmm.
even, like that would also be like an
Yeah.
incredible album,
Yeah. And
because yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, there's some long albums that I really love that have like a lot of songs on them. So for me,
Yeah.
it's not even necessarily just that it is long.
Yeah.
It's just for me the direction it went, it kind of felt just
Yeah.
just wasn't hitting as hard, I guess, in the second half.
Yeah. And that's pretty fair. And especially for me, I felt like from like 17 to 22, I mean, which is like too late up till
Hmm.
like Good Days. And
Hmm.
Good Days and I Hate You, like those two songs, those have been out forever. So I'm not
Hmm.
really counting those, but I felt like a lot of those songs were not filler necessarily, but like I don't know how much it really added.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I feel that too. Um, I guess we can get like into the songs like in
sure.
detail now because I don't want to like start like talking about one specific song, I guess, and get
Yeah,
it all confused. But
sure.
yeah, I don't know. From the beginning, I really like the opening SOS. I think it's a cool
Mm-hmm.
opening to the album. for one, so I was reading a little bit about um like some of what her inspiration for this album was, and I mentioned that it's more than just an R&B album, and like I guess she was kind of going for that. Like she wanted to have some like rap songs on the album and whatnot. And like this is like one where I feel like she's kind of just doing like a free flowing rap.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was just like a good introduction to like what we were about to listen to.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think that this, like the first track, it provides like a pretty interesting contrast to her last album, because her last album on the whole, like Control, it was very almost like timid and
Mm,
unsure and kind of like, I mean, all her albums are pretty introspective, but a lot of the themes of that album were kind of her dealing with her insecurity and not being confident and not feeling like she belonged. And then
gotcha.
this first song, SOS, is just kind of like a I saw it described as like a warning shot. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, like I'm back, like, it's
Right.
been 5 years, but like I belong here. Like this is kind of
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
do.
Very
And so I
confident
kind of
entrance.
yeah, exactly. So it provides an interesting contrast to the last album. So that's why I like it as well. But yeah, it was interesting though because yeah, like you said, she kind of raps a lot more on this album than she ever has before, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, kind of goes to show that like more confident side of her that she hasn't shown before, which you know, I
Yeah,
like. So
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
like also something um kind of minor, but something that comes up throughout the album is that like Morse code sound. I don't know
mm,
if you noticed that, but like it's like spelling out SOS, I think at least.
yeah.
And you hear it throughout the album, and I like that you hear that just like from the first few seconds of the album. It like kind of introduces this sound that you're gonna hear throughout the album. You're also gonna hear like waves in the background, which kind of reminds me of like the album cover. It sets like
Hmm.
a good stage for just
Yeah.
the vibes of the record.
Yeah. That is an interesting point though. Have you heard the backstory on the album cover, like the art for it?
Something with Princess Diana, but I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what.
There's a very famous like photo of Princess Diana kind of sitting
Okay,
on this yacht. I can pull it up.
all right.
Um, but she said that that photo was kind of the inspiration for uh like part of the inspiration for just this album in general because
Okay.
it sort of depicts like the isolation that she was trying to sort of
Mm,
convey.
gotcha.
So you can see here.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's that's very
so
similar.
it's basically like
Yeah.
basically a carbon copy of what that is. So
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
pretty cool sort of imagery there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I did not notice the little Morse code bit you talked about. I'll have to go back and re-listen to for that, but that is really interesting as well.
Yeah,
A
I
cool
want to
little
say
nod.
it's like in the very first few seconds of the song, but then you also hear it. I have it noted for a couple other things. At the of end of Love Language,
Hmm.
um, at the end of Notice Me. Um, I have a bunch of notes here, so it's probably somewhere else
Yeah,
as well. But like you hear it. So yeah, it's cool.
yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
do you know the
Now it
song
was
Chop Suey by any chance?
that sounds really familiar. Why do I know that?
It's by
What is it
System
by?
of a Down. It's
Okay.
probably their most famous song. Very very different vibe from this record. But the the like line that's memorable from that song is I think it's I cry when angels deserve to die, and like
Oh wow.
he screams that line, and like the end of this song is like her saying I cry in like a very similar like melodic way, even though it's like
No,
a
yeah.
completely different timbre. Whenever I hear the end of the song, I like feel like she's about to like belt out singing Chop Suey, which is just like a really funny thought to me. But
That is funny. I like that. I like that. Who knows? Maybe that was the inspiration. You never know.
yeah.
Um, but I want to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on Kill Bill, because
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite songs on this album. I mean, it's
Yeah.
super popular. It was her first #1 hit, nominated for a Grammy. So, but it would tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, I can respect it. I also really like the name of the song is very fitting
Hmm.
to the song. A reference, I'm guessing it's a reference to the movie
Yeah,
Kill Bill. And it's a good pop song. Like the lyrics are very tight. And the melody is like very unique and memorable, which is for me, I think acting in its uh not disfavor,
yeah,
because sometimes I find it a bit annoying, but
hmm,
it's undeniably catchy.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's kind of just how I feel about it. It's a good song. I can recognize that, but it's just not for me.
yeah,
But the production on it is great, and yeah, I don't know. That's those are my
yeah,
thoughts on it.
yeah. I think it was a fitting song to be the second song on the album. And granted, I think they probably did that just to like maximize streaming numbers, to be fair. But like, I don't know. I think like one thing I noticed right away was like she mentions like her therapist and like talks about a lot of like
Yeah, that's fair.
you
A
know,
lot of the themes that you hear throughout the album.
yeah, a lot of the themes that you hear throughout the album, a lot of like personal thoughts, like a lot of
Hmm. Hmm.
introspection, which again is like very common throughout the album. And so I don't know. I think it was a good sort of intro to what the album is going to be about, you know, kind
Yeah.
of this aggressive sort of, you know, imagery that pops in your head of like killing your ex. And then also like, you know, kind of her like struggling with some inner thoughts of like, you know, she'd rather be in jail than alone,
Right,
which
right.
is like, it's a relatable feeling, right? So
Hmm.
like, you know, it's not something that, you know, you really hear frequently
Right.
in media and things like
Yeah,
that. So
it's definitely a unique concept for a pop song too.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah,
Yeah, and like the one thing I really love about this song is just the bass line on the song is just
mm.
awesome.
I
And so
never
it's one of
really
my
noticed it, or I guess focused on it. I'll have to go back and
yeah,
listen more closely.
yeah, definitely like one of my favorite like sonic aspects of this album is that
Hmm.
bass line and just like I don't know, just the melody in general, which I know
Hmm.
you said was a little annoying, but I really like it.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
yeah.
I would say another song I really liked and I want your thoughts on is Love Language. Because it's actually nominated for a Grammy as
Oh
well.
wow. Okay.
And I believe is nominated for Best Traditional R&B
Okay.
Performance. And in my
Interesting.
notes, before I saw that in my notes, I had described it as a heavy traditional R&B like
Okay.
feel and song.
Yeah.
So that's fitting.
I could see that from the lyrical standpoint, from what I remember of the lyrics for this song. Um,
Mhm.
but and this is again like a personal preference thing that like
Yeah.
makes me struggle with honestly a lot of the album is like
Hmm.
I just hate songs that have like snaps as a beat, and
Yeah.
this was one of those from what I remember.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I that's the only comment I have on it is songs with snaps. Ugh.
That's fair. That's fair. I do get that, to be honest. For me, I enjoyed that because I feel like I'm a big R&B fan, so like I feel like
Mhm.
R&B music has very much shifted in the last like 5 to 10 years to be like more hip hop esque, or
Mhm.
like more
Mhm.
rap
Mhm.
than like
Right,
traditional R&B. Like you don't hear a
right.
lot of like traditional like 90s 2000s R&B type songs.
Sure.
And this is what this song felt like, kind of
Felt more
a
like that.
flashback to that, which I
Gotcha.
really like. So
Yeah.
she also in this song like samples her own song "Hit Different," which I thought was
Oh, that's
cool.
cool. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, maybe sample isn't the right word, but like interpolate. I don't know.
Sure.
There's a little excerpt of it like
Yeah.
in the middle of the song, and then she
No.
also samples an Aaliyah song called "I Don't Wanna," which I love Aaliyah. So pretty cool cool sample there as well. So I really like this song. This is one of my favorites as well. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that one.
Nice. Yeah, that one I honestly I didn't love anything through Blind. Seek and
Yeah.
Destroy I kind of liked, but it
Hmm.
was I felt like Seek and Destroy was like Kill Bill Part 2, like just the
Yes.
vibes wise,
Yes.
but something about it I preferred. Um but um but yeah, I wasn't really wowed by anything until Used. Used,
Yeah.
I really liked that song. And what I have written is great bass line. And I remember listening to
Nice.
it today and I was like, wow, that bass line's good. And then I looked at my notes and I was like, oh, yeah, I already wrote that. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, for me, and I don't know if any of these check your
Hmm.
boxes as well, but Used, Snooze, Gone Girl, Smoking on My X Pack, and Ghost in the Machine for me, and those are like almost all in a row. I don't really remember my thoughts on Notice Me too much, but
Yeah.
all those in a row is like, okay, wow. I At this point I was
Yeah.
like, I get the hype. Like this is
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if you got thoughts on any of those songs in particular.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back real quick to what you
Sure.
said about Seek and Destroy, which I thought was a good point. It is
Hmm.
definitely kind of like a part two to Kill Bill. And
Hmm.
again, I feel like I feel like this album I feel like I should have made you listen to Control before this album, because again, like the contrast between the two albums is so interesting to me, because um just like her attitude in Seek and Destroy is such like a huge contrast to what it was
Yeah.
on Control,
Uh-huh.
which I think just like kind of like encapsulates a lot of what this album is, which is just like her talking about like how she's grown and like how she's kind of like become more comfortable within herself,
Uh-huh.
and like is sick of like taking all this random bullshit from people that she
Uh-huh.
doesn't need to.
Yeah.
And that song is again pretty representative of that.
Yeah, I can see that. It
um
definitely has a very confident
yeah.
attitude to it.
Yeah, so that's a good one for me. But yeah, in terms of the run of songs you talked about, I mean, all of those are pretty much on my list as well of songs I really liked. Used is one of my favorites as well. I'm a
Hmm.
big Don Toliver fan, so I really liked his feature. I
Hmm.
think he brought like an interesting flavor to the album. That, I mean, there's very few features on this album. There's like what,
Yeah.
three out of like 22 songs. So like,
Yeah.
they do stick out. But I really like that one. And again, goes to show her growth a little bit, because in this song she talks about just like kind of feeling numb and like used. It's
Hmm.
from all this stuff she goes through on a daily basis. So I thought that
Right.
was interesting. Snooze is a great song, again
Yeah.
nominated for like what was it, like R&B song of the year or something.
Okay. Yeah. I like that song a lot.
Really good
That's a
track,
good one.
hugely popular. um Gone Girl is also a really good one. I really like that one.
I like that one a lot. A couple of things I have noted for that one. So one, I really like the instrumentation of it. There's like organs or keys in the background that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of slightly offbeat. Um, but they sound really nice. And at the very end, or maybe it was throughout the song too, there's like reverb on the backup vocals that just sounded like, I don't know if cinematic is the right word, but
Yeah.
it definitely brought a lot to the song. Um, I do have noted that this is a song with snapping on it, so mixed feelings on that. But
Nice.
overall, I really like this song. So this the, earlier I had mentioned like there are things that I thought like she attempted things, and on some songs it worked, on some songs it didn't. And for me, this
Mhm.
was one for like snapping, where it's like, okay, this is a great song, like
Yeah.
regardless of something that like I'm personally
Hmm.
not as much of a fan of.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's a key change at the end, which is like not
Yeah.
very common in
Hmm.
pop songs today. And I think it's nice it adds something to the end. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's interesting. I didn't notice that key change, so that's good. I'll have to re-listen to that
Yeah,
and
it's like
see what they said.
right at the end, like she sings the chorus like one more time, basically, and it's just in a
Oh,
like one key higher, basically.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I like that. That'll be
yeah,
cool. Um, but yeah, I love that song again. Again, like I'm gonna say this over and over again, but like super introspective song as well.
Hmm.
which I mean, that's just how she operates at this point. Like the Control was also an album where she, was very introspective and very open. So that was cool to see. I want more of your thoughts on Ghost in the Machine because I feel like you were excited by the
Yeah,
Phoebe Bridgers feature as a lot of people were. So
for sure. Real quick, I'm gonna say something about Smoking on My X Pack.
oh yeah,
For one, like I feel like that is just like a rap song, basically, like not
100%.
much of a R&B song. And like the beat just reminded me of like a Kanye song. And
Mm-hmm.
I know we we can't seem to manage to not mention Kanye in an episode. But the last thing we were talking about was like, or I was talking about was how I don't really like listening to Kanye anymore. And this was like
Mm-hmm.
kind of a like moment when I was like, yeah, like why listen to Kanye anymore when like SZA just like did a Kanye song as well, if not better than like most of Kanye's
Mm-hmm.
most recent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I really liked that song. I like the vibe of it, and it's like the type of hip hop music that I'm into. Um, but yeah, to get to Ghost in the Machine, I said one of my favorite tracks on the album. I love the drums. Phoebe Bridgers with two question marks. um, yeah, her voice is like surprisingly fitting for the song, which is like
Yeah.
kind of wild because like on paper, I feel like this is
I
not
never would have
a
put these two
matchup,
together.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you would expect. And one thing that is like a little jarring to me is like their lyrical styles are very different. So like when she's singing about whatever she's singing about on her like verse, it
Mm-hmm.
it feels like a little out of place, but
Right.
sonically it fits. So I don't mind it too much. And like overall it like kind of sounds like a Phoebe Bridgers song. I don't know how much Phoebe Bridgers. Oh my goodness, that's hard to say
Mm-hmm.
like five times in a row. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if how much of her music you've listened to, but there's definitely a lot of sonic elements that are similar to her music. Um, and I love Phoebe Bridgers, so it was cool to see her on this and see this matchup. It was a good song. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about Phoebe Bridgers' music. I've heard like pieces here and there, but I'm
Mhm.
not 100% sure. But I was, earlier I was looking at like the Genius annotations on this song,
Yeah.
and I saw that her choice to feature Phoebe Bridgers came from wanting someone with a conversational approach to their music on the track.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if that tracks for you, but
Yeah. I
it's
would
kind of
say
an
like
interesting
her
tidbit.
her lyrical style is very like I don't know if autobiographical is the best way to put it, but it's like very verbose and like I think
Mm.
conversational is a good way to describe it too. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, you should definitely check out some of her music. I don't know how much you would enjoy it, but it's like indie folk is I guess what you would call it. But
yeah.
there's a bit more like electronic elements to some of her music, especially her most recent album.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's great, and I think if you like this song, there's probably songs by her that you would also like. So.
Yeah. No, 100%. And yeah, and going back to what you said about smoking on my X
Mhm.
Pack, I think we're comparing it to a Kanye song is interesting. I didn't think of that comparison myself, but I really like that song as well. I thought
Mhm.
her rapping was really good.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like
it
very
was.
impressed.
Yeah, for sure.
Because again, not something that she's done really before.
Uh-huh.
And I was super impressed. So, and like, when you make a rap song, like 90% of rap songs are like, oh, like fuck that bitch, and like that's pretty much all this song is. So I was like, you know what, that I can get down with that. So pretty cool. F2F, which is a to me immediately felt like a pop punk kind of song. I don't know if that's accurate necessarily, but
Mhm. Yeah,
weird. I will say, let me say my
sure.
my
Yeah, yeah.
entire
Go for
my
it.
entire notes on this are pop punk with two question marks and then says weird but not bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Um, yeah. For me, it was like whiplash hearing this right after the like stretch of songs that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because yeah, I kind of immediately hated this song. Like to me, I think pop punk is a good general description. There's like a twinge of like country to it too. Um, but it here's what I wrote about it. The best way I can describe how this sounds to someone who enjoys some pop punk music is how Hot Shower sounds
Oh no.
to someone who enjoys rap.
Yikes. Oh, that's a damning
It's like
indictment
it
there.
it sounds like what someone who like doesn't listen to it too often thinks it should sound like, you know?
That is probably exactly me, because that I was like, oh, this
I
feels like a
I
pretty
don't mean
decent pop
to
punk
roast
song.
you or
No, no,
anyone
no, no, no.
who
That's fine.
enjoys the song. I mean, that's just my opinion, which yeah, I mean, I feel bad also like saying such negative things about it because like it's obvious she like she isn't someone who doesn't know what like rock or alternative music sounds like when she has
Right.
songs like Ghost in the Machine. Um,
Mm,
because yeah, I don't know. It just goes back to like what I was saying earlier, where it's like in some moments she tries it and it works perfectly and
yeah.
hits, and in some moments it doesn't. And I just thought this was one of those. So,
Yeah. No,
but
I can 100% get that. I mean, I when I first heard the song, I was like, what is happening? Like, this is not
yeah,
at all what I thought. It also felt, I mean, obviously, like it's the only song like this on the album, but it felt a little out of place. Like, I feel like
yeah,
this song, even though I didn't think it was terrible, was definitely one that could have been like cut and like
mhm,
in order to condense this album.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was an interesting experiment at the very least. So I'll
Mhm.
give her some credit for that.
Yeah, yeah, I can do that as well.
But yeah, um, one song I also wanted to touch on was one called "Nobody Gets Me," which is a song after F2F.
Mhm,
Um, and so I had to read a little bit more about this song because I thought it was a fine song to begin with. But I think the content of it is something that was really interesting. And so like in throughout like the song itself, she's kind of, saying that like her partner is the only person that gets her, right?
mhm,
Which is, that's a pretty common theme. Um, but it's in an interesting context because like in a couple months ago or something like that, she had like done an interview talking about like how she had had like a failed engagement. Like she was
mhm,
engaged at one point and then like they had to break it off for some reason.
mhm.
And so like this song is kind of like an ode to that relationship,
Gotcha.
which is interesting because she's kind of saying, you know, she felt as though like he was the only one that really understood her, like as she's going through all these like changes. Um, and there's a line here that says, "You proposed, I went on the road, you were feeling empty, so you left me." And like that's a pretty like, um, pretty big, I don't know, a lot of emotions there.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to just kind of like stick that in there.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I think it was an interesting song. I liked it. I thought it was a good song as well, like another sort of, more classic R&B type of song. But I don't know if anything
Yeah.
stood out to you on this one or not. But yeah,
I'm smiling because it was my second least favorite song on the
yeah, that's
album.
fair.
So
Tell
which
me
was
more.
like unfortunate because like for me it was like F to F and then that song is like
Yeah, yeah,
but it's not, and I can appreciate like some of what she's singing about on the song.
hmm.
Um, something else that like this kind of just a neutral point. Do you know the song "Fade Into You" by Mazzy Star by any chance?
I do not.
Okay, I'll send it to you after. But something about like the opening of the song sounded very similar to that song, and it just
Hmm.
was something I wrote down there. Um,
Nice, interesting.
but
Yeah, I will say I think that this is one point that maybe I don't know if this was kind of something that rubbed you the wrong way, but I will say like again, she's very introspective. Like that's something that's a very common theme throughout the album. But it's like at a certain point, maybe it can start to seem like a little bit whiny. I don't know if that's
yeah,
something that like
that
I
was
thought you had. So like especially when it's
yeah
like this one where it's like, oh, nobody gets me but you. It's like, okay, it was like you're not
that
12, like
yeah this. But I also wrote the lyrics feel a little sappy,
yeah, yeah,
but
that's fair.
and there's another song that Special.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yep.
lyrics reminded me of Creep. I think she like kind of has I forget exactly what the lyrics were on the song, but yeah, I don't know.
Mm,
There's a decent amount of like that kind of sentiment lyrically right in a
yeah.
row that
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit, yeah, tiresome, I
Yeah, just a
guess.
little off-putting. Yeah. No, I
Um,
can definitely understand that.
but
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, a special was one. Again, I thought like sonically it was fine, but like the
mhm.
content, I was like, okay, like get it,
Yeah, yeah,
especially because that song is basically just like her being insecure in herself, and like I think that that's fine,
hmm
but especially when Control was basically like an entire album worth of that, it's interesting to see that have like also play like a prominent role here. Now, I'm not saying like maybe that was intentional, right? Like she's still growing,
hmm
she has changed a lot, but like these things kind of like fade in and out of like her kind of like day to day, So
hmm
like I can see it from that perspective, but also it's like if you're going to do that, I think it could be executed better.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, special. Or well, let me see. So nobody gets me conceited. I thought was like forgettable in my
right,
opinion. Special as well. Too late, also forgettable.
yeah.
Um,
I think
and
it
then
was it was
yeah,
this stretch of songs that I was,
yeah,
yeah, at that point I was like, yeah, a lot of this is kind of forgettable and sounds like
yeah,
iterations of what she already tried but did better.
yeah, yeah. I mean, earlier I had said like 17 through 22, but yeah, I mean, now that I'm looking at it, it's probably more like 13 to 17. Like pretty much
hmm
all of these could be cut out, and I
Yeah,
wouldn't really miss any of them to be
right.
honest.
hmm
So yeah, but I will say 18 is one of my favorite songs on this album. It's my favorite beat at the very least. And you know how I love a beat. But yeah, she
I,
kind of like talks a bit about like rejection and isolation, and just like talks about her growth generally. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like the beat that carried the song as much as
yeah,
possible, and I really liked it. So
yeah. For me, I didn't like any of the songs through like Too Late, and then what I
mm.
wrote for Far was this one's okay. So that's probably higher praise than it
Yeah,
sounds because I was
yeah.
like not as into this album,
Hmm.
and then like this kind of perked me up again.
Yeah,
And I also said that I liked the guitars in the background on this one. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, and that's kind of generally how I feel about the next like few songs. I started like picking up my interest in the album again after this.
Yeah.
Like I think Shirt's a good song.
Yep.
Open Arms is a good song. I liked SZA's
Hmm.
part better than Travis Scott's part, but overall it's a
Sure.
pretty good song.
Hmm.
Um, I Hate You is pretty good. Good Days, I think, is like one of the best songs on the album. The guitars and like
Definitely.
whatnot that sound like awesome. And then Forgiveless, I think, is a great way to end the
Hmm.
album. It's almost like unfitting after the songs before it, but
Yeah.
it's that like kind of confident edge that we were talking about.
Yep.
That I think it's done well.
But yeah, I think that was that's a really good stretch of songs.
hmm
I really enjoyed. I mean, like I said, Far was great. Shirt was a really popular one that kind of blew up on TikTok at one point.
Gotcha.
So that was a really good one as well for me. I also really liked. I mean, I Hate You and Good Days have been out for quite a while, so I'd listened to them. I'd honestly listened to them so much that like I didn't even listen to them. Like
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
while I listened through the album this time, but great songs as well. I Hate You is a I really enjoyed the production on that one. I thought it was really interesting.
yeah.
Not a super I don't know, common style, which was cool. Um, sorry, I'm looking at the list of songs here to see what else I'm missing.
I'm looking at the single art for I Hate You, and it's kind of
Oh,
funny. It's just like
cool. This
yeah,
conversation.
the iPhone conversation.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I did
Yeah.
like Open Arms. I know you said you preferred SZA's verses to Travis Scott, so I thought
hmm
that feature was pretty good.
hmm
Um, I thought it was interesting because it probably I'm not sure on the timing of it, but like probably alluded to like his relationship with Kylie Jenner,
Gotcha.
because they like recently separated. Um,
Gotcha.
and also like that verse reminded me a lot of a song on one of his albums called Coffee Bean,
Hmm.
which is like towards the end on Astro World, and
Hmm.
it's like
I
very
feel like I'm
yeah,
vaguely familiar with it.
yeah, it's like a slower, like more contemplative, like more introspective song from Travis Scott, who like does not usually make that kind of music.
Yeah.
So I thought that that was kind of an interesting, nod to that potentially.
Hmm.
I really like that one.
Hmm.
And then Forgiveless, the last song, yeah, super, super interesting. Like you said, pulls like an old dirty bastard verse, which is
Yeah.
like they didn't just would not expect that on like a SZA
Hmm.
album.
Right.
Um, and yeah, just like shows that confident edge. It kind of just like I don't know. I was just impressed by the just the composition of that song. I thought the beat,
Hmm.
I thought her like kind of rapping a little bit was really good. And just like the inclusion of the verse itself by ODB was awesome. So big
Yeah.
fan of that one as well.
I'm looking at the writers list for this song right now, and Björk was a
No
writer
way.
on this. Yeah. I don't know how much music you know of hers, but
I've
um
heard a little bit and it's very weird from
is
what
is very, very weird. Yeah. It's sometimes it's hard to listen to for me. Oh,
yeah.
it says that it contains a sample of Hidden Place.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
interesting. I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Um, but interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny actually. I don't know. I don't remember when I saw this, but I was reading SZA's Wikipedia page,
Mhm.
and I was seeing that she had listed Björk as a influence, and I was like,
Oh wow.
I haven't like noticed that
Right.
influence sonically in her music at all.
Mhm.
Um, but hey, there it is.
There it is. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I will say, just generally speaking, on this last song, um, kind of provides like a nice bookend to the
Hmm.
album. It's like
Hmm.
very similar to the first song. Very confident, like warning shot, and then this is just like a final reminder as to like
Hmm.
this is who I am now. Like
Yeah.
that's it, basically.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, definitely a big fan of this one. But
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
I think
yeah.
in general, just like that idea, even for the things that I didn't like, they're all presented so confidently throughout the album. And I feel like that's just a theme of the album is confidence and like
Mhm.
that like I haven't listened to Control. So I don't know. I might know a song or two that but maybe not by name, like if I heard it or something. But like the thought I have of SZA in my head is someone who's very confident and
Yeah.
someone who is confident enough to try out all these other genres and generally do pretty well
Mhm.
trying out anything she tries.
Yeah.
um, and it might not always be perfect, but there's that confidence there every time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not how she carried herself before or what, but it seems like that was what she was trying to put forward on this album, and I would say that she succeeded definitely in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think those are all great points, to be honest. And I agree with a lot of them. Yeah. Over again, I think this is a really good album. I think if it had been like 5 songs shorter, it would have been like GOAT status. Like I think it would have been even better than it is now.
Yeah.
But again, like it's very rare for me to like not dislike a song on an album. So I was pretty impressed by the fact that I didn't.
Yeah.
And I part of that is due to just like I mean the production was really good on this album. I think like her voice in general is awesome.
Hmm.
I think that she rarely like she knows what is in her wheelhouse and what isn't.
Hmm.
So I think that she does well to kind of pick and choose what she does really well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this is a really enjoyable listen. So
Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, I come back to this album all the time. And same with the one that preceded this one, Control. Also a
Hmm.
great album and also one I will force you to listen to at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
give, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, for me, like, um, I guess to my perspective, I feel like people already put it in that like GOAT status for or the
Mm.
record, and it's like getting so many accolades, which definitely it deserves a lot of those. But for me, even though I'm not like on that page yet, I'm I'm at the stage of like, okay, this is someone I'm gonna pay attention to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I hearing this, I feel like she could easily top this. Like, I like she could have topped this album by having something that was shorter, like you mentioned. So yeah, for me, it's like, okay, I'm definitely gonna pay attention to whatever she puts out next because I it will probably be great, or at least interesting in some way because there's definitely a lot of like genre melding that she did here that was interesting. Um, so yeah, those are like kind of my thoughts on it. Even though I didn't like love the record,
Mm-hmm.
it was a statement enough that it was like, okay, it opened my eyes to a
Yeah.
new artist.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I think you'll have even more context if you get a chance to listen through Control, because I think that will really frame this one pretty well.
mhm.
At least I hope it will. But give me like a top three and a bottom three. Uh,
Okay. Yeah,
so,
yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like Ghost in the Machine has to be in the top three.
yeah,
Um, Good Days. It's hard because I like Snooze, I like Gone Girl, I like Smoking on My X Pack.
yeah,
Um, Probably any of those three could be chosen. I'll go with Snooze because like I think that one I would probably go back to the most.
yeah.
And then bottom three, F
Mm-hmm.
to F, Nobody Gets Me.
Yeah,
Maybe Conceited after that too. I don't really remember being like offended by any other song. So I guess I'll go with those three, F to F through Conceited.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think honestly, I think that bottom three is probably going to be mine as well.
Okay.
So I again, like I thought all the songs were well done, but I
Mhm.
just don't know how necessary they were. In terms of a top three, I'm gonna try to stay away from like the singles and the really popular ones, just because I mean they're all pretty good and I've
Yeah.
listened to them a ton. I'm gonna give Love Language a nod, Far, and dang. Dang. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Used as well. I thought
Okay.
that was a good one.
Nice.
But yeah, again, uh, Kill Bill, Low, Used, Snooze, Gone Girl, Far, all great songs. So
Mhm.
tough to pick there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you think you'll come back to this album?
I so that's tough for me because we've been trying to record this for I maybe a month now,
Yeah,
a couple
probably.
weeks. So I had listened to it a lot at the
Mm,
end of last month when we were first listening to the album.
yeah.
And then after maybe 6 or 7 times listening to it, I was like, okay, I got the gist. I got enough notes. Um, and then I didn't listen to it again until today.
Yeah.
So I guess to be honest, probably not. Although I think some of those songs that I just mentioned in like the top three, I could
Mm,
probably add to a playlist. The thing is that when I typically listen to music in the car at work or something, I'm typically listening to an album all the way through. So
yeah.
if I'm not that hot in the album, I'm probably not going to do that. But
Yeah.
for a future playlist, for sure, definitely those songs that I mentioned um, would go in. So,
Fair enough. Yeah, I like it.
yeah.
Um,
How about you? Is this in your general rotation or?
Yeah, a lot of these songs either have been or are like in my rotation. I'm not like really typically someone who listens to like whole albums
Yeah.
like consecutively like you do. Um, but a lot of the songs on here I really like. So like I listen to them pretty frequently. And I'm looking forward to when she releases next. I mean this album already was almost a year and a half or
Hmm.
something like that. So hopefully it doesn't take another 5 years to get another album, but Yeah, definitely looking forward to whenever she releases something again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Overall, big fan.
nice.
Yeah, I think yeah, pretty much wraps up our discussion, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, this was a review of SOS by SZA. And yeah, join us next time on Smokified. And next time we review an album, hopefully it doesn't take us fucking 3 years to do it, but you know, when it's
We
supposed to.
already have a list of songs or albums at least that, there's stuff that we didn't choose in
Yeah,
place of this.
yeah,
So
there's a ton.
we got some ideas.
We have a lot of ideas. Whether or not we actually have the time to act on any of them is the other portion of it. But
We're doing pretty well this year so far.
yeah, we've done well so
We got
far.
two
I guess,
two oh well, I guess they were last year, the 2 episodes, and I still haven't edited one of them. We're
nah,
working on it, but
it,
we're doing well.
the content's coming. The content's coming. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we well. But yeah, this is a fun one. I'm glad we got the chance to talk about this. So
for sure.
um, yeah, that'll do it from us. I'm Sammy. That's Tate. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.